Okay, let's talk about the Kwakiutl. But before we do, let's look at our workbook, reproducible 33, the Kwakiutl of the Northeast. We're going to expand on our note-taking abilities right now. We're going to not only identify the main idea, but we're going to start putting in supporting details. Now, this is very important because if we can't get this step right, then taking notes in the future are going to be very difficult. So I'm going to go a little bit slower than normal, but usually I go very fast. And the idea of making these videos is that you can press pause, write down things, rewind, whatever you need to do. Um, can't do that in class. So that's the advantage of looking at the videos here. Can't press pause in class, but you can press pause here and get your notes down, whatever you've maybe missed class or you've missed something in class. You can just come here and clean it all up. All right, so we're looking for the main ideas and supporting details of the reading. So let's take a look at the perfect place, the first paragraph. There is a group of islands off the Pacific Northwest coast of the United States and Canada where the temperature is pleasant much of the year. Here, the Pacific Ocean stays at a nearly constant 50 degrees Fahrenheit, and the ocean breezes keep the area mild. Even in the winter, the temperature does not often drop below freezing, although it is very, very rainy. This has been the home of the Kwakiutl Indians for the last 9,000 years. Okay, so what is our main idea here? Well, we, they give us a clue right here, the perfect place. The Kwakiutl have a great place to live. So that's what I would probably write for my main idea. Kwakiutl have a great place to live. And what are the supporting details? Well, the ocean keeps the temperature mild. That would be my first sentence. Winter does not drop below freezing. Uh, and it is very rainy, I'd probably put in there, allowing the Kwakiutl to live there for 9,000 years. So a combination of those, of what I just mentioned, would be great supporting details here. You could just write down temperature is very mild because of the ocean and does not get very cold. Kwakiutl live there for a long time. So that would be a good way to put supporting details. Now, you know what? Let's go ahead and go so much to eat. First paragraph. Unlike the Inuit whose search for food took a great deal of time, Kwakiutl had forests full of deer and moose, and ocean waters full of easy-to-catch fish, especially salmon. Women gathered shellfish at low tide and plucked the wild berries that grew in many places. So again, we get a clue right here. What's the main idea? Kwakiutl had plenty of things to eat. So main idea, Kwakiutl had many things to eat. And then we can start listing them on details. They ate deer, moose, and we just go down the list here of ocean fish like salmon, shellfish, berries. Okay, so we could put that in supporting details of just list the things that they were able to eat. So that's basically how this is all going to shape up, and take your time, doing this part. Make sure that you get the main idea and details because, like I said, as once we get to this is our end result. We want the main ideas and details. What was going on in this passage? Okay? So that's what we're going to do as we go through the rest of this. Um, they had plenty of resources, and I'm not going to go through the notes anymore. That'll be up to you to finish off. I think I've given you plenty to work with. So they had tall cedar trees. These cedar trees are very important because they use them to build their houses and very large canoes to get around. Um, they would take the bark off of these cedar trees and peel them off, soak them in salt water, and cut them into thin strips and then wear them. They would weave them into hats, coats, and what this would do is it would keep them very dry from the rainy weather. That was the one weakness of the Pacific Northwest. Yes, they have great weather, but it also carried with it lots of rain, so they needed rain gear to protect them. And they used these cedar trees to do that. They were very good at flowing the water off their bodies. Otherwise, it's not very pleasant if you're constantly in there. Another thing I wanted to point out is that they would make these wooden bungalows. Now, what a bungalow is basically a house that has a very big porch, front porch. That's important because they wanted to be outside, but they didn't want to have rain, so they'd have these shelters in their front so they could be outside and still um, be protected from the rain. Of course, with the cedar trees, they'd make these totem poles, uh, and you can see that right here. Okay. And this would tell stories. It would tell what the town's about. Just a lot of communication here with their totem poles. It varied greatly from town to town. You can see they made these big boats. They were very into art and decoration. They were they had a lot of time on their hands. They had a very good life. In fact, we can call them the party animals of the American Indians because they would have parties all the time. I mean, think about it. If you had lots of food around, you didn't have to work very hard to survive, and it was very rainy, so you couldn't go out as much as you would like. What do? You have parties. You get together and have a lot of fun. So these people had a pretty good life compared to the other tribes. Um, if you're the type of person who likes to go to parties and social gatherings, well, then the Kwakiutl were for you. One of the big things at these parties was gift giving. The more you gave, the higher status you had in their society. And the biggest thing that you can give is copper. They would find copper, hammer it out, um, make nice designs, and give it to somebody. And this was a big deal. If you gave somebody a copper, that was a great honor, and you would take pride in that copper, and more importantly, you would take pride in giving away things. The person that gave away the most was considered the richest, the most powerful, the most important of all the people. So giving generously meant that you were rich and of high class, so it was very important to them to give away as much as possible. What else did they give? They gave blankets, cedar boxes, fish, canoes. Like I said, the copper was the biggest deal. And their celebrations, they would put on plays and make costumes and just have lots of fun, but indoors most of the time because of the weather. So build these great big hall areas that they can go into and gather and have a lot of fun. And that's Kwakiutl. Kwakiutl are pretty simple. They're up in the Pacific Northwest, so let's remember that. They lived in bungalows. They ate lots of berries, fish. Um, Salmon is a big deal, and they made their clothing and shelter out of cedar trees.